We're in Vietnam. The year is 1967. These are scenes on an aircraft carrier in the South China Sea right in Da Nang Bay. You see some CH-46 helicopters landing from Marine Corps Helicopter Squadron HMM-164. These are grunts getting ready to go on an operation up near Dong Ha. They're waiting to board the helicopters to take off. These are scenes of some of the air crewmen that man these helicopters. Some of the crew chiefs, some of the line chiefs, the different people involved in the helicopter squadron to keep these ships flying. You see the grunts saddling up here, getting ready to go. The men in the white sweatshirts are the loadmasters for the helicopters. Everybody has a flak vest on. Most of these people have the old type OD jungle utilities on. Several of the air crew people have the old type Marine Corps utilities on. Look at all the gear lined up on deck here. There's one of the crew chiefs getting ready to take off. These helicopters were based at Marble Mountain Air Facility right outside of Da Nang, and for 2 or 3 months during their tour in Vietnam, they would go afloat on these different aircraft carriers. One of the main aircraft carriers that HMM-164 worked off of was the USS Valley Forge. The decks on these carriers were coated with asphalt to take the pressure of the wheels of the helicopter and cushion them so that they wouldn't eat into the deck. There we see a loadmaster leading some grunts to a helicopter. They're getting ready to take off. Look at the bandoliers of 7.62 ammunition on some of these men. Those are the ones carrying the M60 machine guns. I see everyone else is carrying an M16. This is a UH-34 helicopter from Squadron HMM-263, picking up some people here. There were several 34s, UEs, and 46s flying these different operations in Vietnam in I Corps at this time for the Marine Corps. Now we're flying north up near the Dong Ha area, and we're looking down the barrel of the 50 caliber machine gun that was on one of these 46 helicopters. Each 46 was armed with 2 50 caliber machine guns. The 34s were armed with 2 M60 machine guns. The UEs were armed with rocket pods and 2 M60 machine guns. This is the area up near Dong Ha. That's the Ben Hai River straight ahead. That's one of the bridges that were blown up. You can see another bridge upriver there. This is a tributary of the Ben Hai River heading south. Now we're making our approach to Dong Ha. There you can see part of the airbase area there and the sign. This is an old wrecked 37 helicopter, one of those big Marine Corps helicopters that they phased out in late 1967. Look at the many aircraft here at Dong Ha. A 34 coming in. There you see some grunts getting ready to load into this helicopter. And once again, we're in the air, heading on an operation out of Dong Ha. This is the LZ. This is one group of infantrymen or grunts, and I don't know where that dog came from. He had to be their mascot. This is another team heading into the jungle. Look at the different weapons. Another LZ and a 34 down there. Now we're back at Dong Ha once again. One of the crew chiefs running to his ship. This is a late evening scene here. This is one of the air crews from the 46 helicopters. There were several fixed-wing aircraft up here also. There we see one taking off. A Yui flying near Khe Sanh, looking out the cockpit window. This is the famous sign erected at Khe Sanh. Everybody that was there will remember that. And there you see many Marines at work here in Khe Sanh, evacuating wounded to the aid station to be later flown to Da Nang. This was quite common up here, as there were a lot of casualties taken by the Marine Corps in the Khe Sanh area. This was a very bad area even before the siege. Many wounded offloaded on this day. This is a boa constrictor snake or a python. I can't really identify it. We found many of these in the different areas in northern I Corps in Vietnam. And this is an airstrike right outside the perimeter at Khe Sanh. Watch closely. Once again, one of the air crews taking a break. Now we're back on the flight line at Dong Ha. You can see the 34s getting ready to take off here. And once again, more wounded. Those 34s were from Squadron HMM 361. There we see inside the cargo door of a 34. This is the ready room at Dong Ha for the pilots and air crewmen. This is right outside the ready room. And another scene on the flight line at Dong Ha. Those 34s were from HMM 263. Once again, we're looking down the barrel of a 50 caliber machine gun as we fly in the area around Khe Sanh. This is what it looked like in the mountains around Khe Sanh. Look at the beautiful waterfall there. That's the hospital ship USS Repose. There you see a 46 taking off from it. Here's a 46 coming into land and offload wounded. Now the 46 is taking off. You can see many Navy nurses on the deck there. The Repose cruised the waters off of Vietnam to pick up wounded. You would see it in Da Nang Bay a lot, off Chu Lai. Up north there, it cruised and picked up wounded during the big operations. More scenes around the Khe Sanh area. Once again, back at the aircraft carrier. And more wounded. There was also a sick bay on these aircraft carriers. The wounded were taken care of there. Then the more serious were transferred to the repose. These are air crew men blowing off steam after an operation. Look at the Navy ships out there. Another 46 landing. Rotor blades stacked on the deck. More wounded people to be evacuated to the repose. These are men being taken up in the elevator from sick bay to catch a flight to the repose. These are scenes outside of Marble Mountain Air Base in Da Nang. This is the bridge going toward the Marble Mountain area from Da Nang. The bridge on the right is a bridge built by the French. The bridge we're crossing is one built by the Americans, and they both still stand there today. This is what they call the graveyard of helicopters at Marble Mountain. This is where they took the old wrecked ships to strip them for parts, and they just left them there. It was like a junkyard. That's an old 37, a workhorse helicopter of the Marine Corps. This man has been wounded, and he's showing off his wound. More wrecked ships. Now we're at Chu Lai at the airbase called Khe Sanh. This was MAG 36's area. They had a great beach here. These are some of the air crewmen relaxing here. There we have a 34 coming over. This was a great beach for surfing. Everyone that was stationed up here at Khe Sanh used to come down here in his off time and surf. The planes would come in overhead, and many people would be down there surfing. It was a great beach. More 46s. Some of these guys would clown around with their movie camera and take pictures of their friends doing all kind of crazy things. That was all part of base life here at Khe Sanh. This is one of the hooch mascots. Everybody lived either in a hardback hooch or a tent down here. There was plenty of mud down here and plenty of sand, but it rained down here a lot. In the summer, it was great to go to the beach. And this is the living area up on the hill above the helipad. I lived up here for a while, and I also lived down near the perimeter at one time too in a tent. This is down on the flight line or helipad. These are Korean Marines waiting for a group of their people to come by in a helicopter. This is right up in the HMM-164 area. Here comes a Huey gunship landing. Looks like a VIP from the Korean Marine Corps got off that gunship. These are Vietnamese workers. There were many Vietnamese workers on the base at Khe Sanh in 1967. This is an LST that ran aground on the morning of New Year's Day, 1967, about 1 o'clock in the morning. They said the people on watch were drunk, and it was laying off Chu Lai, and it ran aground. I was there when it happened, and I heard that really awful sound when it came ashore. They had to eventually dismantle it to get it off the coral reef. They couldn't pull it off. You can see they're throwing the debris over the side and getting ready to dismantle it. That ship was there for months. I watched them tear it down to the keel. There's a little pet dog that one of the guys had. You can see he has his little dog tag on too. It was nice to see things like this. Most of us were afraid to get attached to an animal over there because if you lost it or something happened to it, it could weigh heavily on your mind. I am glad to see that people did have pets there. Myself, I was a little afraid to, but it makes me feel good to see something like that. I think everybody that sees this, it brings out the humanness in the war. And it's a very nice scene. I'm really glad that Craig was able to remember this dog in his film. I was at the Vietnam Memorial once, and a man left a picture of the dog he had in Vietnam, and he wrote a little remembrance on the back about the dog not being able to come back with him. I was very moved when I saw that picture. That was one of the artifacts that I've seen there that really impressed me. There's the repose out there once again, and here we have some construction going on at Chu Lai. There's the little dog once again. He's probably going down to the beach to catch some heavy pipeline waves like these guys. There he is once again watching them surf. There was plenty of good surfing down here at Khe Ha. Back up in the living area once again, and everybody had a camera, and everybody was a clown. More Hueys. And they put a sign on the head that says Ready Room. This is right up on the flight line here at Mag 36. There was an Army hospital over to the right of this area right here. It was the 91st Evacuation Hospital. Those are the rocket pods on the Hueys. And you can see the living area up on the hill there. This is HMM 361 squadron area. Once again, more of the living areas. And you can see some 34s out here. This is the 263 area here. Once again, some artillery going to the field. When we look at all this home movie footage, it's a great way to remember your experiences in Vietnam. Like the story that I told you about the dog, that's a very important thing to remember. And we don't have a lot of footage out in the field, but we do have a lot of air base footage. And it helps people remember. If we can make people remember in some little way, I think it's really worth it. Once again, a scene flying out of Khe Ha. Scenes of the living area over there in the foreground also. And another 34. And that's a 361 helicopter there. I could tell by the markings on the tail. This is the lower end of the helipad going toward the LST ramp. You can see the old mess hall in the background, which was the sick bay then. And the living area is up in the pine trees there. Once again, more scenes of the living areas. Look at the many signs. And as I said before about remembering, we can't show footage of every outfit in the Marine Corps, the Army, the Navy, or whatever, but at least we can show something. And that's why I think that it's important to show these different scenes. Everybody was just a young kid growing up when he was there, and you can see all the young faces here. A lot of these people didn't make it back home, and I think it's important to remember them in these films. Now we're in the village known as An Hai Village. And these guys went out on liberty. We used to be able to go on liberty in this village, and you had to carry your rifle, and you could have a few drinks here and chat with the people. I often wondered if An Hai Village was still here today in this area. I had several friends go to Vietnam. I asked them to go to Chu Lai to see, and the Vietnamese government wouldn't let them into Chu Lai, so I doubt very seriously if the village is there. And this is the waterway between the village and the peninsula. Used to be a lot of bars over on the peninsula that we all used to go to. And a junk coming up the waterway. And always the many, many little kids. And if you look closely, you can see all the goods that they had for sale to the Americans here. That scene of those little kids running at the bottom of the steps there that was up near the village square. Look at the foot lockers there. More little kids with souvenirs for sale. And a mama san. If you look closely in the background, you'll see the base barbershop for Chu Lai. And that's the gate where all the workers used to depart to go home from the base at night. That was a sauna there built by one of the air crewmen. I think his name was Gray. More of the guys that work on the flight line. And just horsing around up here on the helipad. A wrecked ship being towed in by a sky crane. Now these guys have to repaint the insignia on the helicopter. You used to see many, many crew chiefs and ground crewmen doing this quite a bit and changing rotor heads. That was the one thing I really hated to do, was change rotor heads on a 34. A lot of work. And then putting the new blades on was really a tough job. There was always time for a sport game, football, some basketball, whatever. That was the way people used to while away the hours. Vietnam was really rough for a lot of people. It was rough for a lot of us air crewmen. We flew a lot of medevac missions. We had to do a lot of work on the ships. We had to pull a lot of emergency extractions and what have you. But I will say that our base life was probably better than a lot of other people. We all had a nice hooch. We even had television. It was great, but we did have a rough time flying. I mean, some of those missions were really bad. We got shot up a lot, shot down several times. So you really paid the price for the good living conditions. Plus, we had to take care of all the wounded men and pick up the dead and what have you, so it wasn't really a great job. I know in these scenes it looks like everybody's having a good time, but they paid for it dearly because flying was really one of the roughest jobs in the war. There's Jayne Mansfield on her USO visit to Vietnam. This is a very rare scene because not many people got to see Jayne when she was in Vietnam. I remember seeing her in the movie Promises, Promises. I think that's my all-time favorite movie of hers. Once again, more scenes on the base at Da Nang here. And an egg beater helicopter flying over. Those were Army and Air Force helicopters. They had those big wooden rotor blades on them. Another scene of an egg beater. And a 34 and a Huey coming in. Once again, these guys breaking up the monotony of doing all this work on these helicopters. Plenty of aircraft here at Marble Mountain today. This is a scene inside one of the tents. And now we're at Phu Bai. You can see one of the fixed-wing aircraft landing. There's a few scenes of Phu Bai here. These are some of the guys when they were up at Phu Bai. This is the living area for one of the squadrons at Phu Bai. Now we're way north on an aircraft carrier in the Gulf of Tonkin. These Marine aircraft are flying missions over North Vietnam. Watch the catapult. And the many ground crewmen here on this carrier helping the pilots get ready to go. These are really great scenes of a fixed-wing squadron on an aircraft carrier during the war. Look at the many Navy ships out there. Some Navy helicopters. They were here to provide rescue for the pilots when they were shot down. One of the pilots taking a break. This plane circling the carrier getting ready to land. And I'm sure it was very rough to land on the aircraft carrier and get caught in that cable to slow them down and stop them. You can see the catapult there in the background. You can see it coming back now after the plane takes off. This film had a little something for everybody. We had grunts, we had the area at Khe Sanh, the base, we had the base at Dong Ha, we had the base at Chu Lai and the one at Da Nang, showing all the helicopter people, the helicopters, the living areas, grunts going out on operations, and then we can cap it off with this fixed wing sequence of scenes. And I think we've shown a lot of different occupations in the service in this film, and it makes me feel kind of good, because that way we were able to remember quite a few people. You know, if you look at these things and you just remember one person that was there or one person that you served with, you know, it's worth seeing. I think the Vietnam Memorial was built for that reason too, to remember all the people that died and to help others remember people that they were there with, not just the people that they lost in their outfits, but people that they served with. And it's very important to remember that experience, because we all were growing up back then, and I think that's why it stays on people's mind. That was probably the most significant time in anyone's life. And no matter how old you get, it's just like it was yesterday. I can remember thinking to myself, I can't remember the exact day I got to Vietnam, but I sure remember the exact day I left. Once again, more scenes here on the flight deck of the carrier. Planes coming back from their mission over North Vietnam. And they're going to try to catch this next aircraft coming in, rigging this big net. And as we conclude our film, I'll leave you with this thought: we have to remember,